A few months ago, I put out a video where I broke down the most likely coaster removals at each park in the newly formed Six Flags Cedar Fair super chain, and I've already been read about several of them. But if you thought things couldn't get worse, oh no, they're about to. Following their 2024 fourth quarter earnings call, they announced that they'd complete an initial review identifying properties that are less strategic and critical to their long-term growth objective, including smaller, non-core theme parks. This confirms what many of us have been worrying about. They are in fact willing to take the next step forward in either selling or closing some of their parks. So this begs the question, which ones are most in danger? Today, I'll be taking a realistic look at all 26 of their theme parks and whether or not there is a cause for concern. But first, I wanted to mention that they could also be referring to any of their 15 water parks, which I'm much less familiar with. If so, that narrows down the pool of dry parks they could remove to probably just a few. We'll go through their current portfolio A to Z and begin with California's Great America in Santa Clara, California. This one we can pretty much skip over, as prior to the merger, the land which the park sits on was sold by Cedar Fair to a real estate development company. This was finalized in 2022 along with a 6-year lease agreement with the option to extend for 5 more years. However, the new owner, Prologis, terminated this agreement with the new Six Flags, meaning they could theoretically close it much sooner than originally expected. Keep your eyes on this one and make as many visits as you can before it's too late. On a lighter note, let's move to Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, Ontario. This one has little to no chance at leaving the chain, as it's by far the most popular theme park in the country and one of Six Flags' biggest moneymakers. They're also receiving a major roller coaster addition for the 2025 season, Alpine Fury. Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina has even less of a chance of anything happening. Six Flags has actually moved their headquarters from Arlington, Texas to Charlotte, North Carolina, and Cedar Fair is too, though they'll be maintaining a significant finance and administrative operation in Sandusky, Ohio, where they were previously based. So yeah, not happening. Speaking of which, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio was previously the flagship park of the Cedar Fair chain. This place has a 0% chance at closing anytime soon, and thank God for that, because there's nowhere else like it in the world. At last, we have our first true candidate, Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Despite them receiving Iron Menace in 2024, which is far from a cheap ride, they otherwise receive very little investment in terms of new rides and roller coasters. When looking at its competition, Hershey Park, Knoebels, and Six Flags Great Adventure, which is of course now part of the same chain, really dominate this region. And with Dorney Park falling so far behind those others, it's tough to say if there's really a place for them. That said, you do have a great team to back it up and a fantastic location right off the interstate near some big population centers. So if Six Flags wanted to make it work, they could grow this park enough to where it could really make a name for itself. For the time being, I'm leaning towards no, this park isn't going anywhere, but I also wouldn't be surprised if I were wrong. I'd say there's about a 35 to 40% chance they close or sell it in the near future. Frontier City in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and Six Flags Darien Lake in Corfu, New York are two properties I wanted to discuss simultaneously, as I believe they have similar fates. In 2018, the former Six Flags acquired the rights to operate both parks until the 2030s, though it's important to note that they don't outright own either of them. The company that does, EPR Properties, has no interest in seeing these parks close. However, I think it's inevitable that they will see new owners. From my understanding, Frontier City as well as Darien Lake don't receive large attendance numbers. Whether they're enough to make the operation of both sustainable, my guess is probably yes, but I don't think the numbers reflect what the new Six Flags chain envisions for the future. I'm unsure how the California's Great America lease is different, but post-merger, I'd imagine that executives from Cedar Fair will want the chain to pull out of the lease early if possible. Like I said though, I think they'd receive new owners before closing altogether, so this actually could be a good thing for these parks. Kings Dominion in Doswell, Virginia is in a transitional phase right now, with them receiving more investment than they have since opening the park, with additions like Twisted Timbers and Rapterra, and an emphasis on theming in the newer sections of the park. Therefore, I see no reason Six Flags would rid themselves of Kings Dominion. I think they've recognized the potential of the park and are taking action, which is great to see. Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, like Cedar Point in the same state, is a highly profitable park which receives loads of investment and attention. I see no reason to even indulge in the conversation of them leaving the chain, because it's not going to happen. This is close to a 0% chance in my opinion. Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California is the company's most attended and profitable destination in the Golden State. Though it can be a pain to develop given how landlocked it is, I think Six Flags will see through these hurdles and guarantee a bright future for Knott's. Once again, this one is extremely unlikely to be going anywhere. La Ronde in Montreal, Quebec, Canada is one that I might have had a different answer for if not for their lease with the city of Montreal, which states that Six Flags must operate the park until 2065. Even with the merger, there's absolutely no way they'd be able to back out of that with 50 years remaining, nor do I think they'd want to. With La Ronde serving the entire population of Quebec, having zero competition and receiving very little investment, I absolutely see it as sustainable. There's likely a reason the former Six Flags got themselves into that lease, so yeah, La Ronde is safe in my opinion. Michigan's Adventure in Muskegon, Michigan is a fascinating park to discuss when it comes to this topic, because at first glance you might think it's one of the hottest contenders to leave the chain. But as you look deeper, it's in a similar situation as La Ronde, where it's got practically no competition and is more of a local destination. This works for them because it's not a super big property and likewise doesn't get major ride additions like ever. I'd imagine Shivering Timbers is a lot to maintain, but it's their signature attraction, so I think they consider it worthwhile. And that's pretty much their only big liability. Other than that, they don't have a ton of notable rides that eat up a lot of money. I think Michigan's Adventure is safe, unless the new Six Flags is looking at their portfolio with the lens that they should all be destination parks that people flock to from all over. Personally, I say they acknowledge that there's a place in their lineup for parks such as this. Six Flags America in Bowie, Maryland is the real hot topic for this video today, as I believe it's the park in the most danger by far. And that hurts me to say because I've always been a firm believer that it's underrated and has a lot of potential. However, I can't imagine that being utilized when there's so much competition nearby, including several parks that now fall under the same chain. Looking at the Mid-Atlantic region, we know they'll be directing a lot of attention towards King's Dominion and Six Flags Great Adventure, but as we previously discussed, they also have Dorney Park to worry about. I definitely see them making that park a focus before Six Flags America, because sadly, this property has continuously underperformed and has had a dodgy reputation for some reason. I'm not sure what's gone down in its history, but that's just the way it is. Locals have always seemed to prefer driving a further distance to one of the region's better parks. That's without mentioning the lack of investment and the sheer quantity of problematic, expensive to maintain rides and roller coasters. In many ways, Six Flags America feels stuck in the past, and for this topic, that's not a good thing at all. It's not up to the standard of legacy Cedar Fair parks or even higher-end legacy Six Flags parks. If you've never been to Six Flags America, I would highly recommend you plan a visit as soon as this year. I'd give this one a 65 to 70% likelihood of leaving the chain, and with how valuable land is near Washington, D.C., I'm really not sure another company would come along with interest to continue operating it as a theme park. Hopefully I'm wrong about this, but I'm absolutely worried about Six Flags America. Next up, alphabetically, would have been Six Flags Darien Lake, which we already talked about, so let's jump coast to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in Vallejo, California. Similar to Six Flags America, I imagine this one sits on pretty valuable land, but where I think the conversation of it leaving the chain ends is in the fact that their other Bay Area property, California's Great America, has already been sold. Therefore, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom will inevitably become the flagship park of a huge population center, leading me to believe there's no way they'd get rid of it. Had California's Great America been saved, if that's even possible, then I think it's feasible they might do something to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Personally, I'd love to see SeaWorld come in and acquire them, as I think they do a better job balancing rides and marine life, but as things stand, I don't think anything will happen with this park. Six Flags Fiesta Texas in San Antonio, Texas was a favorite of the former Six Flags, and I imagine will continue to be a favorite after the merger. This park pretty much dominates in southern Texas, has a wonderful location, an incredible team behind it, and receives innovative new attractions often. I'd truthfully be shocked if this park were sold or closed down in the foreseeable future. Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey has been in the news a lot recently with the removal of many fan favorites, including the world's tallest roller coaster, Kingda Ka. As tragic as that whole situation was, Six Flags did come out and say that they had big plans for this park, and from what I hear, they intend to bring it back to its former glory, making it the destination it was in its heyday. Even putting that aside, I wouldn't have considered this very likely, but with the information we have now, there's absolutely no chance they'd rid themselves of Six Flags Great Adventure. Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois is the lone amusement park that serves the Chicago-Milwaukee area. It's grown into something truly remarkable with 15 soon-to-be 16 roller coasters, and if you ask me, there's zero chance it's sold or closed anytime soon. Six Flags Great Escape in Queensbury, New York is different from all of these others as it's marketed as a summer resort destination as opposed to just a theme park. But the cool thing is it works as both, with it being a legit, albeit small park that serves a population of dedicated locals who love the place. It's a similar case to Michigan's Adventure in that it's not a massive property and it doesn't get many new rides, but it doesn't necessarily need to since it's not trying to be a Cedar Point or Kings Island. Plus, with their on-site hotel and indoor water park, there's a lot more to it than what first meets the eye. Contrary to expectations, I think Six Flags Great Escape is completely safe. Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California was the former Six Flags flagship park, like what Cedar Point was to Cedar Fair. They're incredibly marketable with more roller coasters than any other park in the world and a prime location just north of Los Angeles. It's been faced with an uncertain future in the past, but with the way things are in its current state, this is an incredibly unlikely possibility. Six Flags Mexico in Mexico City is the chain's only theme park in Latin America, and it does really well for them. It's known across the country as the gold standard for thrills, and they have a team that keeps it in tip-top shape. With such high attendance and year-round operations, there's also no way this park leaves the chain. Six Flags New England in Agawam, Massachusetts is your quintessential middle-of-the-pack theme park in the new Six Flags chain. They don't receive a lot of investment, but they also don't really need to because it's the only major theme park in New England. Plus, it's far enough from Six Flags Great Adventure and it's different enough from Six Flags Great Escape to where I think it's an appropriate asset to hold on to. I'd give this about a 10 to 15% chance of being sold, not impossible, possible, but far from likely, and even in a world where this does happen, there's no way another company would not pick it up. Six Flags Over Georgia in Austell, Georgia is a park we absolutely do not have to worry about for two reasons. One, Six Flags just acquired 100% ownership of the property, and two, in the 2024 Q4 earnings call, they specifically highlighted Six Flags Over Georgia, stating that the upcoming Georgia Gold Rusher would be the first of several new rides they intend to add soon, seeing as the Atlanta market is highly attractive to them. Six Flags Over Texas in Arlington, Texas was the original theme park between the former Six Flags and Cedar Fair, and that alone has to be good for something. But even if it weren't, this park has a chokehold on North Texas, as it's the only major park within a 4-hour radius. Plus, we learned recently that they'd be receiving the world's first 300-foot dive coaster, which I see as an enormous commitment to the park's future. Six Flags Over Texas isn't going anywhere. Six Flags St. Louis in Eureka, Missouri is the first park in a while that I'd be a bit nervous about. Sure, it's the only theme park serving the St. Louis metro area and the only major theme park anywhere close, but I still have to question its longevity in the chain. They never got a lot of love from Six Flags, which likely reflects in their attendance numbers being lower than they'd like. But what really gives it away as a possibility is the fact that they have 10 roller coasters and a lot of them are expensive to maintain. 3 large wooden coasters, along with Mr. Freeze, which is a dated LAM launch coaster, cannot be justifiable at a park of this size. The only reason I think they've all hung on is because they already don't have many big coasters, so removing one means you have to replace it, and that's a sum of money we haven't seen invested here in a very long time. Sure, things could change, but for now, I'll give this one a 35 to 40% chance at closing or being sold, about the same as Dorney Park. Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota never got a lot of attention from Cedar Fair and hasn't received a new major ride in a long time. But it is crucial that it sticks around, as there's no other major park serving the Minneapolis metro area or state as a whole. In my opinion, those things about even out, but then you have to consider that there's really nothing here that's much of a headache for the team, who keeps this park in great shape. All but Excalibur, which I'm shocked is still around, but putting that aside, I really can't think of a reason Valley Fair wouldn't be sustainable. I'd give it about a 10 to 15% chance, as it might be one of the options they turn to, but when all is said and done, I think it'll continue to operate as is. Finally, we end at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri, which is in a similar boat as Valley Fair. On one hand, they don't receive many big investments, but on the other, it serves an area that doesn't have many options to turn to. If you live here and want to try something else, your best bet is Silver Dollar City 3 hours south, which to me comes across as more of a family-friendly destination as opposed to a thrill park like Worlds of Fun. I absolutely think they can coexist, especially now that Kansas City's population is continuing to boom. I'll give Worlds of Fun about a 5 to 10% chance at closing or being sold. Alright guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Are there any points I failed to bring up? Otherwise, I'd very much appreciate if you could give this video a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.